The Forbidden Bond. Prince Cain of Ilithia was shunned by everyone in the palace. His black hair and silver eyes made him different, and whispers of a curse followed him wherever he went. Only his younger sister, Princess Lyra, showed him kindness. One evening, Lyra found Cain alone in the garden. "Why are you hiding here?" she asked gently. "No one wants me around." Cain replied coldly. "I do," Lyra said, sitting beside him. "You're not alone, Cain. I care about you." Cain remained silent but felt a small warmth in her words. For the first time, he wondered if his fate might not be as lonely as he believed. Despite the distance Cain kept, Lyra refused to give up on him. She began seeking him out daily, whether in the library, the training grounds, or the quiet garden he favored. Slowly, her presence became a comfort Cain didn't admit but no longer pushed away. One afternoon, as Lyra brought him a tray of tea, she noticed a strange pendant Cain always wore. It was silver, shaped like a crescent moon, with intricate engravings. "That's beautiful," Lyra said. Her curiosity piqued. "Where did you get it?" Cain's expression darkened, and he tucked the pendant beneath his shirt. "It's nothing. Just something I've always had." Lyra could sense his unease but didn't press further. Instead, she smiled warmly. "Maybe it's a sign you're meant for something greater." Cain let out a soft laugh. The first Lyra had heard from him. "Greater? In a world where I'm treated like a ghost? Don't be foolish." Lyra shook her head. "I believe in you, Cain. One day, everyone else will see what I do." Her unwavering faith surprised Cain, who had grown used to rejection. Though he didn't say it, Lyra's words planted a small seed of hope in his heart. For the first time, he began to wonder if his life held a purpose he had yet to uncover. The annual Spring Festival was a grand event in the kingdom of Ilithia. Nobles and commoners alike gathered to celebrate with music, dance, and feasts. For Lyra, it was an opportunity to bring Cain into the light, away from his usual solitude. "Cain, come with me to the festival," she urged. Finding him in the library, he glanced at her, unimpressed. "Why should I? It's not like anyone wants me there." Lyra smiled. "Because I do. Besides, if they don't welcome you, I'll make them." Reluctantly, Cain agreed, following Lyra into the lively courtyard. The vibrant decorations and cheerful crowd contrasted sharply with his reserved demeanor. As they moved through the festivities, whispers followed them. "Why is he here? He doesn't belong with us. Stay away from him." Lyra glared at the murmuring nobles and stepped closer to Cain, her hand firmly grasping his. Ignoring the stares, she led him to the dance floor. "Lyra, stop," Cain protested. "Trust me," she said, pulling him into the dance. Her confidence and warmth radiated, silencing the crowd as they moved gracefully. For the first time, Cain felt something other than rejection. Lyra's unwavering support shone brighter than the festival lights. And though the world seemed against him, she stood by his side. But as the music faded, a nobleman approached with a sneer. "A cursed prince doesn't belong here." Before Cain could respond, Lyra stepped forward, her voice sharp. Cain is my brother. And if you insult him, you insult me. Do you dare? The nobleman fell silent, his face pale with embarrassment. The crowd murmured in surprise, and Cain looked at Lyra with a mixture of gratitude and awe. From that moment, their bond grew stronger, though neither realized how much it would soon be tested. For the first time, Cain felt a strange warmth, a feeling of being defended and valued. It was a moment that would linger in his thoughts long after the festival ended. In the days following the festival, Lyra noticed Cain clutching his pendant more often, as if it gave him strength. One evening, she couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer. Cain, she asked gently, what does your pendant mean to you? Cain hesitated, his silver eyes clouded with an emotion Lyra couldn't place. It's the only thing I've had since, before I came here. Before? Lyra echoed, confused. Cain nodded. I don't remember much. Just fragments, a ship, a storm. And then, nothing. This pendant is the only link I have to where I came from. Lyra felt a pang of sadness. Do you think it's connected to your past? Maybe, Cain admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But it's better not to dig into things that can't be changed. Lyra disagreed silently. To her, the pendant was a clue to Cain's true identity, and she resolved to uncover the truth, no matter what it might reveal. After their encounter with the old woman, Lyra became determined to uncover the truth about Cain's past. While Cain brushed off the woman's words, Lyra couldn't ignore the weight they carried. Late one evening, Lyra snuck into the royal archives, a vast chamber filled with scrolls and records detailing the history of Alithia. She scoured documents about the royal family and events from the time Cain was brought to the palace. Her heart raced when she stumbled upon a faded record from 15 years ago. It described the sudden arrival of a boy, found near the coast after a violent storm. The boy wore a strange silver pendant but had no memory of where he came from. Lyra's breath hitched as she read further. The boy, later named Cain, was adopted into the royal family. But only the king and queen knew the full truth of his origins, truths deliberately kept secret from everyone. Even Cain himself. Determined to learn more, Lyra confronted the palace historian, an elderly man named Cedric, who had served the royal family for decades. Master Cedric, Lyra said softly, I need to know about Cain's origins. Please, tell me the truth. Cedric hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. Your Highness, he whispered, what you seek is dangerous knowledge. But if you must know, Cain was never meant to be here. He came from a shipwreck, and his pendant bears the mark of another kingdom, one we were once at war with. Lyra's mind raced. Another kingdom? Which one? The kingdom of Renner. Cedric replied gravely. But if the truth were revealed, it could spark conflict between our lands. That is why the king and queen kept it hidden. Lyra thanked Cedric and left, her heart heavy with the weight of the secret. As she returned to her chambers, she glanced at the pendant Cain always wore and knew their journey to uncover the truth was only beginning. Whatever lies ahead, she whispered to herself, I will stand by you. Cain. When the queen's sapphire crown went missing, Cain was quickly accused. Guards found a broken chain near the display case, resembling the one on his pendant. "I didn't take it," Cain said coldly as nobles whispered and sneered. Lyra stepped forward. "He was with me all morning. He's innocent." The king ordered an investigation, and no evidence was found in Cain's chambers. As the crowd dispersed, Cain turned to Lyra. "Why defend me?" "Because I believe in you," she replied firmly. For the first time, Cain felt a glimmer of hope, knowing Lyra was by his side. Despite the lack of evidence, whispers about Cain's guilt spread through the palace. The weight of suspicion grew unbearable, and Cain began avoiding the public eye entirely. One evening, Lyra found him sitting alone in the garden. "We can't stay here, Cain," she said softly. "If we want to uncover the truth about your past, we need to leave the palace." Cain looked at her, surprised. "Leave? You'd risk everything to help me?" Lyra nodded without hesitation. "You don't belong here, Cain. We need to find out where you came from, no matter what it takes." Though hesitant, Cain finally agreed. That night, under the cover of darkness, the two siblings slipped past the guards and disappeared into the forest, leaving behind the palace and its accusing eyes. Their journey to uncover the truth had begun. As Cain and Lyra ventured into the dense forest, the palace lights faded behind them. The night was cold, and the path ahead was treacherous, with tangled roots and shadows hiding unknown dangers. "We need to reach the northern border," Lyra whispered, clutching her cloak tightly. "The kingdom of Renner might have the answers we're looking for." Before Cain could respond, a growl echoed through the trees. A pair of wolves emerged, their eyes glowing in the moonlight. "Stay behind me," Cain said, stepping forward with a calm yet firm resolve. Using a fallen branch as a weapon, he managed to fend off the wolves, protecting Lyra. Once the danger passed, Lyra looked at Cain with admiration. "You're stronger than you think," she said softly. Cain glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Let's keep moving." Despite the challenges, the siblings pressed on, their bond growing stronger with each step as they journeyed toward the truth. After days of travel, Cain and Lyra reached the northern border. Beyond the mist-covered hills lay the kingdom of Renner, a land Cain had only heard of in passing. As they entered a bustling village, the locals paused, their eyes widening as they looked at Cain. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Could it be?" one villager murmured. "He looks just like the late queen." Confused, Cain and Lyra approached an elderly merchant. "Why are they staring at me?" Cain asked. The merchant studied him closely before bowing deeply. "Your pendant, it bears the royal crest of Renner. You must be Prince Kale, the son of our queen who was lost to the sea many years ago." Lyra gasped. But Cain's mind swirled with disbelief. "That's impossible. I'm not." "Come to the palace," the merchant urged. "Our king must see this." Cain hesitated, but Lyra placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "This might be the truth we've been searching for, Cain." With reluctance, Cain agreed, knowing his journey was far from over. At the palace of Renner, Cain and Lyra were brought before the king. The moment the king's eyes fell on Cain, he froze, his expression a mixture of shock and sorrow. "It can't be," the king whispered, stepping closer. "That pendant, it belonged to my wife, Queen Alara. You are my son, Cain, the prince who was lost to us." Cain stared in disbelief. "I've been told I'm from Alithia, a prince there. How could I be your son?" The king explained how. Years ago, Cain had been taken during a storm while traveling with the queen. Despite endless searches, they found no trace of him. The pendant was a family heirloom, the only proof of Cain's royal lineage. Lyra listened in stunned silence, realizing the old woman's prophecy was true. "So, Cain isn't my brother," she murmured, her voice trembling, though the truth was overwhelming. Cain remained skeptical. "If I'm your son, why do I remember nothing? How can I be sure this isn't just another lie?" The king knelt before him. "I will give you time, my son. But in your heart, you will know the truth." For Cain, the revelation was the beginning of a new struggle, accepting a past he never knew and deciding where he truly belonged. After the king's revelation, Cain struggled to accept the truth. Though the pendant and the king's words seemed undeniable, his heart remained conflicted. Lyra noticed his turmoil as they walked through the palace gardens. "Cain, this doesn't change who you are," she said gently. "It changes everything," Cain replied, his voice heavy. "If I'm the Prince of Renner, then what was my life in Alithia? A lie? A mistake?" Lyra placed a comforting hand on his arm. "You are still you. It doesn't matter where you came from or what others think. You're more than your past." As Cain gazed at the horizon, memories of Alithia and the bond he shared with Lyra began to anchor him. He realized that, regardless of his origins, she was the one constant in his life. "I don't know if I belong here," Cain finally admitted. "But I know I can't face this alone." "You won't have to," Lyra said with a reassuring smile. "We'll figure this out together." Despite the doubts swirling within him, Cain felt a flicker of hope. His journey to discover himself was far from over. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid to face it. As Cain and Lyra adjusted to life in Renner, a new threat emerged. A messenger arrived at the palace bearing dire news: a powerful warlord, responsible for the queen's death and Cain's disappearance years ago, was rallying forces to attack both Renner and Alithia. The king, pale with anger, explained to Cain, "This is the man who tore our family apart. He's returned to finish what he started." Cain clenched his fists. "If he's responsible for all of this, then I'll face him." Lyra, standing beside him, said firmly, "We'll face him together. Alithia is my home, and I won't let it fall." Despite objections from the court, Cain and Lyra began preparations for battle. Cain trained tirelessly, driven by the need to protect the kingdoms and uncover the truth behind the warlord's motives. As tensions grew, Lyra's unwavering support strengthened Cain's resolve. Together, they vowed to defend their homes and uncover the secrets of the past, even if it meant risking everything. The armies of Renner and Alithia, once divided, joined forces under the leadership of Cain and Lyra. Their unity inspired the soldiers. But the threat loomed large as the warlords' forces approached the border. On the battlefield, Cain stood at the front lines, his pendant gleaming in the sunlight. His determination was unshakable. Today, we fight not just for our kingdoms but for our future, he declared, his voice echoing across the ranks. The battle was fierce, with arrows raining down and swords clashing. At one critical moment, Lyra was surrounded by enemy soldiers. Cain saw her in danger and fought his way to her side, wielding his blade with precision and strength. "You shouldn't have taken such a risk," Cain said as he shielded her. "And leave you to fight alone?" Lyra replied, her eyes blazing with defiance. Together, they fought back to back, their bond unbreakable amidst the chaos. Their courage rallied the soldiers, turning the tide of the battle. As the enemy began to retreat, Cain confronted the warlord, a towering figure clad in dark armor. "You destroyed my family and my life. This ends now," Cain said, his voice filled with fury. The warlord laughed darkly. "You're nothing but a lost child clinging to false hope." But Cain, fueled by Lyra's presence and the strength of his newfound identity, fought with everything he had. After an intense duel, he defeated the warlord, bringing peace to both kingdoms. With the battlefield quiet, Cain and Lyra stood together, exhausted but victorious. Their unity had saved their people, and their bond had only grown stronger. Yet, the journey ahead was far from over. With the war won, Cain was hailed as a hero in both Renner and Alithia. The people, once wary of him, now admired his bravery and leadership. However, amidst the celebrations, Cain and Lyra found themselves facing a new challenge, one they had kept hidden even from themselves. Late one evening, Cain and Lyra stood on the palace balcony, looking out at the stars. "We've come so far," Lyra said softly, "but I can't stop thinking about what's next." Cain nodded, his silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "I found a place here, but I feel torn. My heart is somewhere else." Lyra turned to him, her voice trembling. "Cain, we're not just siblings by title anymore. I don't know when it happened, but my feelings for you have changed." Cain was silent, his emotions swirling. "Lyra, I felt the same," he admitted quietly. "But what we feel, it's forbidden. The world won't accept it." Tears filled Lyra's eyes. "The world has already judged us in so many ways. What difference does it make if we follow our hearts?" Cain took her hand, his touch firm yet tender. "Even if it's wrong in their eyes, I will protect you. Lyra, I won't let anyone tear us apart." Despite the weight of their confession, they knew the road ahead would be filled with opposition. But for the first time, they embraced the truth of their love, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them together. The growing affection between Cain and Lyra could not stay hidden for long. Rumors began to spread, and both kingdoms reacted with outrage. The Council of Renner demanded Cain renounce his connection to Lyra, while Alithia's court condemned their bond as a betrayal of royal honor. "You cannot let this continue," Cain, the king of Renner, said firmly. Your duty is to your kingdom, not to this forbidden love. Lyra, summoned by her father in Ilithyia, faced similar accusations. You are a princess. How could you risk the honor of your family for something so reckless? Despite the pressure, Cain and Lyra met in secret. They'll never accept us, Cain said, his voice filled with pain. But I can't let them take you from me. Then let's leave, Lyra whispered. The titles, the kingdoms, they mean nothing if we can't be together. Though the decision weighed heavily on them, Cain and Lyra agreed to abandon their royal lives. Under the cover of night, they slipped away from the palaces that had once defined their existence, leaving behind crowns, duties, and expectations. In the darkness, as they crossed the border into unknown lands, Lyra looked at Cain. Even if we lose everything, as long as I'm with you, I'll have everything I need. Cain held her close, his voice steady. We've sacrificed it all. But for you, it's worth it. Always. Together, they stepped into an uncertain future, guided only by their love and the hope of a life where they could finally be free, far from the palaces and the burdens of royalty. Cain and Lyra found refuge in a quiet village nestled in the mountains. The villagers, unaware of their royal lineage, welcomed them as strangers seeking a fresh start. Cain worked as a blacksmith, his strength and skill earning the respect of the community. Lyra, with her gentle demeanor, helped teach the village children, her kindness quickly making her beloved. Together, they built a humble but peaceful life. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace in their small cottage, Lyra looked at Cain. Do you regret leaving it all behind? She asked softly. Cain shook his head, his silver eyes warm. I only regret not finding this freedom with you sooner. Titles and crowns mean nothing compared to what we have now. Though the shadows of their past lingered, they no longer felt the weight of judgment or expectations. They had traded royalty for simplicity. But in doing so, they had gained something far greater, each other. Their love, once forbidden, became a legend passed down in whispers. A story of courage, sacrifice, and devotion. Together, Cain and Lyra proved that true happiness could only be found when you followed your heart, no matter the cost.